Information I'm about to share with you has literally saved people's lives, and it's probably saved my life more than once. We're going to talk today about supplements for travel, the essential supplements for travel. And there are some key things that I take whenever I go traveling. Varies slightly depending on where I go to, but I'm going to share that with you today, as this is one of the questions that I get asked quite often. So this is an amazing tool to have in your toolkit anytime you go traveling, whether it's a small, quick trip or whether it's a large trip across time zones or to different parts of the world. So I'm really excited to be sharing these with you today. And also I'm going to share with you a bonus supplement for those of you who are tuning in early, that is also really helpful when you're going traveling, okay? So stay with me for a moment. Today we're going to talk about a number of things. We're going to cover a few things. I've got a great show lined up for you. The ways travel can harm your health. So obviously, travel, the way we're traveling today, it's not natural. We were never meant to be on these supersonic, fast jets, trains in some countries, and going across time zones. We used to walk. We used to take horses maybe, but obviously this is very unnatural for the human body. So how do we mitigate some of those effects that occur when we're traveling? We're going to be talking about that, how to mitigate those effects. Specifically today we're focusing on supplementation. We'll talk about some essential supplements for mitigating these effects. We're going to be talking about, I think, 6 or 7 of these really great tools that you can use to help make sure that you come back feeling better than when you left. Isn't that the purpose of a vacation? To feel rested and rejuvenated and ready to take on the world again when you get back. And of course we want to, focus in on how we can have the best time ever when we're away, right? Like how can we spend the most time in our vacation enjoying it, rather than being sick. And as I mentioned at the beginning, some of these recommendations have literally saved people's lives. Definitely saved many people from being very, very sick and causing a snowball effect on their health. So for those of you who don't know me or are tuning in for the first time, I'm Josh Gitalis. I'm a clinical nutritionist and functional medicine specialist. I own and operate a clinic here in Toronto, and I also teach a variety of courses in a full functional nutrition certification program. And I'm also a passionate traveler, which I think makes me a great person to be presenting this information, combining the best of all worlds. So I'm just going to load up my Facebook page here so I can answer your questions as I go along here. Please feel free to comment. Please feel free to ask questions as I go along here. As this is an interactive experience, so I'm happy to hear all your comments. And just let me know if you've tuned in and you can see and hear me okay and everything's great and you're looking forward to this information. So just to start off with a few statistics, okay? How many people actually suffer from traveler's diarrhea? Well, first of all, it's estimated that about 800 million people are traveling every year. Okay. Now, obviously, they're not all going to destinations that pose risk, but that's a lot of travel, and that's a lot of movement of bodies across the world. So, their estimates are about 5 to 50% of travelers experience traveler's diarrhea. Okay. So that's one topic that we're going to focus in on. Probably one of the most focused in on topics, because that's the one that people really want to avoid, traveler's diarrhea. And about other estimates are about 24 to 40 million people come down with traveler's diarrhea. Those are big numbers, right? That's a lot of sick people. Now, I know personally in my clinic, I've dealt with some clients that had traveler's diarrhea and then have never been the same in terms of their digestion, in terms of their health. Now, usually The bugs that we get from other countries are what are called self-limiting microorganisms. What does that mean? That means that your body and your immune system and your digestive tract are able to deal with these organisms, right? They're only going to harm you as much as you're able to or not able to actually deal with these things. So sometimes, well, most of the time people can just deal with it. They're in discomfort, but then it goes away. Sometimes it can actually last for a period of time. Now, I just want to start out, for those of you who are tuning in right off the bat, with a bonus supplement, okay? So before I get into sort of the main ones that I take, I just want to address this bonus one. And the first one is called indole-3-carbinol. Indole-3-carbinol, it's a bit of a weird name, it's a bit of a technical name. What does that actually mean? Well, indole-3-carbinol is a nutrient. We actually can get it from vegetables like broccoli, like cauliflower. And what it does is it helps with detoxification in the liver. Now, when I go traveling, I feel like I'm exposed to way more chemicals, plastics, fragrances, air fresheners that I usually am exposed to when I'm at home. You know, you get into a cab and they've got that air freshener hanging from their rearview mirror. Or you go into a hotel and they've just sprayed the area with some scent. Or you are drinking bottled water from plastic because that's the only thing you can get in the airport. So this first bonus supplement called indole-3-carbinol really helps to detoxify those chemicals. I was traveling in Bali a few years ago, and all of the water on the island is plastic water. It all comes in these big plastic jugs because their purification systems that purifies the water coming out of the tap isn't good enough. So everyone is drinking this plastic water. I was there for a couple months, and indole-3-carbinol was sort of one of my insurance policies to help me detoxify those extra plastics. Okay, so that's the bonus one. Now we're going to get into the key supplements that I take when I travel. But before I do, I just want to know from you guys tuning in if you have ever experienced any illness while traveling. So just put it up in the chat box. I'd love to hear your comments. We can get a little, I could find out from you guys if you've ever experienced this really, really not so fun situation. And let's start there. So put in your comments while I get started here. And I just want to get a little bit of a poll of how many people have maybe experienced it. If you haven't, you can put in a comment too. Let me know that, no, you've never experienced any issues while traveling. So the first one is adaptogens. So we've got a formula here in the clinic called ADR Restore. It's our formulation, but there's a lot of similar formulations out there. And ADR Restore is an adaptogenic complex. What does that mean? Well, there's these herbs that help your body adapt to stress. They actually help you with the stress response, and they're called adaptogens. One of the most popular adaptogens is called ginseng, right? We've all heard of ginseng because it's the most popular one. In fact, it's a highly revered herb in China, and that's actually, I think, an episode for a whole other day, because I know a whole lot about ginseng and about the history and all about the herb. So maybe we'll talk about that another day. But ginseng is one, rhodiola is another, licorice root is another, holy basil, reishi mushroom, cordyceps, ashwagandha, eleuthero, which is also known as Siberian ginseng. So many amazing adaptogens out there. And pretty much at any health food store, you can find yourself one with a combination of a lot of these herbs. And when you combine them, they actually are a lot stronger than when you take a single adaptogen. So why do I take these? Because we're exposed to so many stressors when we're traveling. We're exposed to radiation if you're in an airplane from the sun, especially if you travel during the day, the radiation is a lot higher. You're exposed to chemicals, as I mentioned earlier. You're exposed to going across time zones, so your circadian rhythms are being affected. Your natural hormonal rhythms in your body are being affected. You're exposed to different foods. Depending on how you eat at home, it's probably going to be a lot different when you're traveling. You're exposed to different pathogens from other people, right? Coughing, sneezing in the plane, sick people beside you, people, you're touching a lot of surfaces. So the list can go on, but your body is exposed to a lot more than it usually is. And adaptogens can really help your immune system. They can help your energy, and they just really help your body adapt to that situation on so many different levels. They give you more energy while you're away, they help you sleep while you're away, and also importantly, they help you adapt when you get back to your hometown, right? So it's not just about going away, it's about coming back and feeling good when you get back, getting back into schedule and not trying to catch up all the time. Jet lag. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about jet lag in a moment, but adaptogens are so great for that. So in terms of some comments that came in, Laura mentioned that they didn't get illness per se, but tend to experience constipation when traveling. Yeah, that's another really good one to address. And we have a comment from Robin that not all illness, but jet lag for sure. And I think most of us are experiencing jet lag if we're traveling across time zones of a couple hours or more. So that's my first supplement, is an adaptogen of some sort. Okay, so the next one, and I'm sort of going at the beginning, I'm talking about supplements that I take on pretty much every trip, and I'm going down to ones that are not as common. So the second one, and I take this pretty much every trip, is a good probiotic. This is important because it sets up our gut for dealing with possible pathogens that might enter our body, and I'm going to talk about that in great detail because that's one of the key things we want to prevent, traveler's diarrhea. So we've got probiotics. I like to start taking these before I leave, take them throughout, and then a couple weeks after for sure, if you're not taking them already. But I take those probiotics, they keep my gut healthy, they boost my immune system, really great for immunity, and they help to prevent traveler's diarrhea and protect me from other things that could be in the food. Now, just a little tip for those of you who are thinking, well, my probiotics are supposed to be in the fridge. What most people don't realize is that probiotics actually don't go bad too quickly. It's not like food, like you leave food out for a day by accident and it just goes bad, right? It goes rancid. But with probiotics, they're little organisms, right? And what happens is when they're out of the fridge, it usually takes about 2 weeks for the potency to start to decrease. So it doesn't necessarily just go bad, you can't take it anymore. So if it's a capsule with 50 billion live organisms, CFUs, then maybe after 2 weeks there's 49 billion. It's really not a big deal. So even ones that are supposed to stay in the fridge, I take traveling. I'm not too worried about that. So it's not 100% necessary to find a shelf-stable one. Besides, when I travel, I'm always looking for a place with a kitchen or a little bar fridge, and there's always a nice cold place for me to put those supplements. Recently, I was just doing a little bit of skiing out west, and I used the Canadian fridge, which is just putting it outside. How about that? Okay, so moving on with our probiotic discussion, there's actually one specific strain that is really fantastic for traveling, and that's called Saccharomyces Boulardii. Bring that in a little bit closer. You can see the name there. It's a bit of a long name, bit of a tongue twister. So Saccharomyces Boulardii has been shown to be really effective for traveler's diarrhea. And I pulled up a study here that was done in 2007 in Travel Medicine and Infectious Disease by McFarland, and it was entitled Meta-Analysis of Probiotics for the Prevention of Traveler's Diarrhea. So what they did is they looked at 12 studies that fit their criteria to see if there was a preventative effect of taking Saccharomyces Boulardii. And what they discovered was that it significantly prevented traveler's diarrhea. When they use the word significant in a study, it's a very strong correlation. So Saccharomyces Boulardii is one that I don't normally use if I'm just traveling in North America, but if I go to a place where the food is questionable, the water's questionable, I'm not quite sure if I might be eating something that I shouldn't be or not, then I definitely start that Saccharomyces Boulardii before I leave. I take it throughout, and then I also just finish whatever's in the bottle after. I take about 3 capsules when I go to bed. Okay, same with the probiotics, I'll take that before I go to bed. And my adaptogens that I mentioned earlier, I would take with meals, usually at breakfast and lunch. Okay, and for those of you who are tuning in a little bit late, we talked about a bonus supplement at the beginning that you can go back and check out that we mentioned right at the beginning of this cast, when you can go look at it when the recording is available, which will be right after this. Okay, so I just want to ask you one more question while we're in the middle here. So we had a couple people mention that they've had jet lag, maybe not so many people with traveler's diarrhea, but are there any things that you guys take when you go traveling? Any key supplements, any things to kind of mitigate the effects of traveling? Now, I've got my selection here, but I love to hear what other people take as well. So just put that in the chat box if there's any go-tos that you have that you take when you're traveling. I'd love to see what you are bringing on your travels, because sometimes I get some really good ideas from people. Okay, so we spoke about the adaptogens, we spoke about the probiotics and the specific strain Saccharomyces Boulardii, and now the next one is an antimicrobial. There we go. Antimicrobial. So this is just one we have in the clinic right now. It's called FC-Cidal by Probiotics. They also have a really nice oregano oil. So I love oregano oil. Very portable, comes in little bottles. You can also get tablets or capsules of oregano oil. And you want some sort of antimicrobial if you're, again, going to a place that's going to have questionable water or questionable food. Again, I wouldn't necessarily take an antimicrobial if I was going to Western Canada, which I just was, or California, which I was also in. You know, like, I know the water purification is quite reliable. But in the past, I've been to Costa Rica, and where I was, stuff wasn't as reliable. So I would take an antimicrobial with every single meal. Okay? Oregano oil is one of my favorites, and this is where we get into some of the life-saving effects of these things. I've literally had people tell me that they go on a trip, they're taking the supplements that I recommended for them, and everyone gets sick except them, right? They all ate something bad or drank something bad, but they seem to be okay because they were taking the precautions we're talking about today. So that's what I mean when I say it's literally saved some people's lives. And we're going to get to a couple others that are really, really important for that very strong effect. So the next one is called activated charcoal. Activated charcoal. Look at that. So activated charcoal, this is probably one of the best if you think that you ate something questionable or drank something questionable. Activated charcoal soaks up everything. It's called adsorption. There's a new word for you, adsorption. We've heard of absorption, right? Like if you have a sponge and you have some water, it absorbs the water. We haven't really heard of adsorption too much. And adsorption, that's how the charcoal works. Like if we put this charcoal under a microscope, we would see these big spaces. It'll also have an electrical charge, and it helps to soak up and bind to things. They actually use activated charcoal in some hospitals for poisonings. So what I recommend is when people think that they've consumed, or whether drinking or eating, something questionable, something that might be have bacteria in it, I get them to take 2 of these every half hour, up to 5 hours. And that usually helps to soak things up, bind it up, and then we poop it out and get rid of it. And that could be a lifesaver. This is not something I would take regularly. This is something that's like in my first aid toolkit, my emergency toolkit, activated charcoal. Very, very powerful. Great to have as a first aid. Not just when you travel, you can have it in your home too. But of course, if you're taking it when you travel, you also have it in your home. Okay, so before I get to the last couple essential supplements, I'm just going to check in here to see what some other people are taking. Okay, so Linda's mentioning that she takes raisins on the plane. I think, yeah, that's super awesome. Helps with constipation. Also a good snack, right? Taking food when I travel is another huge thing. Maybe that's a topic for another day. Megan Taupner, my travel partner and wife, takes ginger all the time. And that's actually, we're going to talk about that in a moment. So ginger, what else do we have here? Vitamin C, great one to help with the stresses of traveling. Sarah mentions she takes vitamin C. Sarah said she was going to mention oregano oil, so great. We're on the same page, Sarah. Laura said B complex, another really great one for dealing with the stresses, because bees help with the adrenals, they help us adapt to stress, they help us detoxify as well, so the B complex is great. Robin mentions that bentonite clay capsules are also great, and that would work on the same lines as the charcoal. Love the bentonite, that's also really awesome. Just want to make sure it's from a good non-contaminated source. Emily's mentioning that tons of water is really important, and yeah, I think that is actually one of the top things. You got to drink tons of water. Airplanes dry you out, and the best solution to pollution is dilution. So if you're exposed to any toxins, you want to flush those out as well. And Megan's throwing up a hashtag travel partner for life. Couldn't be truer. Okay, so we're getting there. We've gotten through a number of supplements. Now, if you think this is super important information for someone you know, tag them, share it with them. Maybe you're leaving for a trip in a few days and you think that that person should watch this so you guys can be on the same page. Tag their name, share it with them so that they can benefit from this as well. Or you can share this video with them afterwards. So we can spread the love and decrease the numbers of 24 to 40 million people getting traveler's diarrhea per year to much, much less. I hope my video has an impact on 24 million people. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. So the sixth supplement that I'm talking about is ginger, right? So Megan actually just posted this as one of the ones she takes, and since I travel with her a lot of the time, we always have a good supply of ginger. Ginger is fantastic for motion sickness and nausea, okay? So some people are not as good with like the movements of traveling boats, airplanes, taxiing, cars, all that kind of stuff that can really mess up your equilibrium. Ginger can be helpful for that. And also a little bonus when we're talking about ginger is that ginger is also an antimicrobial and can help with digestion. So say you bring ginger and you didn't bring all the other stuff, maybe you can just take the ginger as a kind of first aid thing as well if you forgot some of the other things and you just have this for motion sickness. So ginger has a lot of great activities. I also was just skiing out west, and ginger is a super powerful anti-inflammatory. So it would help with recovery, muscle recovery as well. Or if I injured myself, which I didn't, thank God, ginger would be helpful for that as well. So ginger's another one that's super powerful and super helpful for those people who are more prone to motion sickness. So that was the sixth one. We have one more we're going to discuss, and we discuss a bonus supplement at the beginning. So if you missed that, if you're tuning in a little bit late, you can go back, watch the recording, and catch the bonus supplement at the beginning that I spoke about. So the final one is more for when you come back, and it's more for if you're traveling eastward, okay? Anyone have an idea of which supplement I'm talking about? Put it up in the chat box if you have. I see Rivera is asking me to talk about food. Maybe I'll mention a few food things that I do at the end. And Teresa's asking, what brand of ginger, please? You know what? Any brand that you can get at the health food store is good. This one is just Nature's Way ginger. It's easy. You can find it anywhere. It's cheap. Ginger's cheap anyway. But any brand's usually a great brand. And I see Emily's written melatonin. That's exactly it. That's our 7th supplement that we're talking about today is melatonin. And to introduce melatonin, I looked up some research for you guys. And there was a study published in 2002, Cochrane Database Systematic Review. It's a big database of information. This was done by Herxheimer and Petrie, and it was entitled Melatonin for the Prevention and Treatment of Jet Lag. They looked at 10 studies to see if there was any good correlation. And what they discovered, I quote, 9 of the 10 trials found that melatonin taken close to target bedtime and destination, about 10 p.m. to midnight, I would stick more to 10 p.m. because I think that's the right time to go to bed, decreased jet lag from flights crossing 5 or more time zones. Daily doses of melatonin between 0.5 and 5 milligrams are similarly effective, except that people fall asleep faster and better after 5 milligrams than 0.5 milligrams. Doses above 5 milligrams appear to be no more effective. So what I've noticed is that 3 milligrams, 1 to 3 milligrams is usually good for me. As they say in the study, above 5 milligrams is a bit excessive, probably not necessary. Most people would probably be fine with 1 milligram. Our physiological dose of melatonin, so the amount that you make naturally on a nightly basis, is about 0.3 milligrams. So what we're getting in these supplements is a supra-physiological dose. It's much higher than our body normally makes, and that can help you to reestablish your circadian rhythm. Now, obviously, the bigger time zone you're going, the more diligent you want to be with this. So I'm in Toronto. I was just traveling to Western Canada and the Western United States. It's a 3-hour time difference, not huge. So I don't feel huge effects of jet lag, but I'm still using a little bit of melatonin, and it's helping me get back on schedule quite well. So I'm digging that. And, the longer, the bigger the time zones, they mentioned 5 time zones here, the more diligent you want to be with it, and maybe the longer you want to do it. To actually alter your circadian rhythms, it takes a full 2 weeks. So most people are not traveling much longer than 2 weeks. You don't even have time to adjust when you get there before you get back. If you're going for a long span of time, you are going to probably take the full 2 weeks to adjust when you're there, full 2 weeks to adjust when you're back. And of course, everyone has a different resilience and ability to readjust when they get there or when they get back. So those are the 7 supplements plus the bonus one I mentioned at the beginning. So the 7 supplements are adaptogens, okay? Probiotics, the third was the Saccharomyces Boulardii, which is the specific strain for traveler's diarrhea. The 4th was some sort of antimicrobial like oregano oil. The 5th was activated charcoal to soak up any toxins that you might have consumed. The 6th was ginger. The last one that I just spoke about, number 7, was melatonin, and then there was a bonus one that we spoke about at the beginning. So those are the supplements for travel. This is super important if you're going anywhere to really have the experience that you want, right? You're taking this time, you're taking this money for this experience, and you want it to be really, really good. I had a client recently who went on a honeymoon, and him and his wife got sick, I think the 2nd or 3rd day. And he actually ended up coming to see me because he hasn't been the same since. That's something I spoke about at the beginning of This Week in the Clinic, episode number 8, that most of these things are self-limiting. They just kind of work their way through and then they're done. But sometimes they can cause damage for many years to come. Okay, so we want to practice prevention here, right? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So for those of you who may have tuned in late or are watching this video after we did it live, I'm going to be checking in on the comment section here for about 48 hours. So if you want to add your comments, if you have questions, feel free to add your comments and I'll be chiming in on them. Or if you have any ideas for other episodes of This Week in the Clinic. I keep on getting so many wonderful suggestions, and that's just helping to keep this thing going. So I'm just going to tune in here to some of the comments. Agley mentions that it's such an important topic. Yeah, it really is. I think most people have to travel somewhere at some point in their life. Rivera mentions turmeric, maybe as one of her key supplements that she takes. I think that's a great one. If you're doing some physical stuff, like I was just skiing, that's a good one to help bring down inflammation as well. It's great as an antioxidant to help you protect you from all the things you might be exposed to. Candace mentioned she came in late. We don't necessarily have to take all these, right? Absolutely not. Go back, listen to what I've said about each supplement, and then decide for yourself which are the key ones that you want to take on your trip. So we talked about a number of supplements for intestinal infections. I usually don't take those if I travel to a place that has predictable food and predictable water, where I know I'm not going to be contaminated. The adaptogen would be something that I would take whenever and wherever I go. Now, in terms of food, I think that's a whole episode for another day, but I gotta say that I always take a lot of food when I go traveling. Definitely 100% for the actual trip for wherever I'm going, because I don't really trust any food in an airport or definitely not on a plane. So I pack a little snack pack with a lot of goodies, nuts, seeds, dried fruits, some nut butter packages, sometimes some jerky, things that'll sustain me for a long period of time. And I also like to take on my travels some teas, because I really like those in the morning. And even as I'm traveling, sometimes I even do a little bit of mushroom drinks or mushroom extracts to help me with the adaptogenic effect, help my immune system, and I like those in drinks as well. Suri says, what about neem oil? I don't really take neem oil when I go traveling. It's not one of my top ones. In terms of essential oils, I do like to take tea tree oil is a great one to take while traveling to help with sanitization. You can use it on your hands. My good friends at Living Libations have some really good antimicrobial essential oils as well. You can use on your hands, you can use in your nose, you can use in places where you need that extra effect. So, for those of you, again, who joined me a little bit late, we talked about a bonus supplement near the beginning. You guys can check that out if you go back in the recording. Again, if you think this is valuable or you're going to be traveling with someone you know in the near future, share it with them. Tag them in the comment section. We want to share this information so everyone could benefit. I want to thank you all so much for joining me for This Week in the Clinic. We do it every Friday. I talk about things that I've learned in my clinic over the week, and I share them with you so that you can benefit from the lessons that I learned. I was doing a bit of traveling over the past month, so I thought today the topic would be great to cover some of the supplements that I take while I'm traveling. The best way to get started is to get started, take this information, use it, otherwise it's not going to be helpful at all. Thank you very much, have a great day, be healthy, and safe travels.